Well, some disappointing news. Let me show you, check this out. We'll walk outside real quick. Yeah, that's my transmission case. I'm cleaning it up. This is my truck, back up on the cribbing, and there's the guts for the trans. So, put the thing on the road, made it like 3 miles. Something didn't feel right. We were in third gear lockup, driving down the road, and all of a sudden it felt like someone hooked a trailer on the back of the truck. And I knew at that point something was going on, so I pulled it back to the house, checked the pressures in the trans. Everything seemed to be okay. We had to pull the pan down to check the pressures. Was full of aluminum, excuse me. So at that point I decided it was time to pull it back out because I just didn't want to damage it any further. So as you can see, it's already torn back apart. It appears that most aluminum, if you can see that right there, came from this rear overdrive piston support. If you watched the last video, this thing slides into the back of the case. It gets bolted in. There's a piston that sits in it that applies for your overdrive. Now, when the fluid, transmission fluid, leaves the trans, it comes back in a port, and this is actually the first thing it hits. So that support's the first thing it hits. And I'll show you guys, give you a rough idea. So right here's our trans. That's the rear port. So this is fluid, where is it? Leaving. This is fluid coming back in, comes through this passageway, hits that support. So what it looks like is I have some kind of weird cooler fluid flow lubrication issue. You know, there's only a couple things that changed. One of them is adding that extra trans cooler. I really don't think that did it. I actually took a piece of the hose out and cut it in lengths and checked it, because while I was doing the chassis work in a previous video, I got a little scorch mark on that, and I thought, okay, well maybe the line was collapsed, and that's what did it. That's not the case. So it's not the line. I have a really hard time believing adding an extra trans cooler was gonna, disrupt the flow that bad. You can see the other line hanging because I was checking it too. So I actually sent the converter back out because there was only a couple things that changed from last year to this year, and it didn't have any issues last year. One was sending the converter out and having it reline, I added that extra trans cooler. Now I did have to pull it apart and put a couple clutches in it, but other than that, nothing changed. We're still using the stock flex plate as you saw, even though I tried to use the B&M one, just didn't work out. So that didn't change. Same motor, same trans case, and all that fun stuff. So I really hope when they cut the converter apart, they find something in there, or maybe it's put together too tight, or I'm really not sure at this point, which it's kind of disappointing to me. But as you can see, I started the cleaning process again. I had to replace that support, the rear drum for the low and reverse, which actually there's a new one right there. There was a core, and the reason why is that drum actually slides over that support, and it had a bunch of aluminum in this inner race where you see my finger at. So it was all wiped out. So I got a new one of those, a new support, a new gasket set. All the other clutches and stuff are gonna be fine. I don't see any damage in the pump. The pump actually looked really, really well. The Teflon, everything looked great. So I'm confused, to say the least. Especially since there's only a couple things that changed inside it. So we're gonna go through it very, very well. That input shaft, this slides through the center of the support. And again, this is the first thing. And you really feel a little teeny tiny bit with my fingernail. So I might take some like 2000 grit and just try to polish it just a hair. But it really, this is actually a aftermarket hardened input shaft, intermediate shaft. The only thing I thought was weird is to note that it appears that the tip of that input shaft was actually rubbing inside the converter, and that's odd to me. And of course, I didn't notice that when I don't have the converter here. I would have showed you guys, but when I pulled it apart, you can actually see rub marks. And another thing to note is this is the stator support, so the input shaft slides through here. This actually has been rubbing too because it's a little bit mushroom. I don't remember, again, when I pulled it apart and put those couple clutches in it, I didn't really check for that stuff. And And maybe I just overlooked it, but I don't think so. And this would suggest that converter was too far into the trans, making that stuff rub. But the thing about it is, we didn't change the flex plate. I actually checked the crankshaft end plate in the motor with a dial indicator. I'm getting like 0.005, which is in spec. And I don't, typically if you have too much crankshaft in play, you'll like kick belts and a squeal or make weird noises, and that's not the case with this motor. I've never had that issue. So again, I'm kind of at a loss. I'm just hoping they find something with the converter, but for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and clean all this stuff up. We're gonna go through it again and just check everything. I made sure I cleaned all the ports out and the trans very, very well, flushed them really, really well. I'm gonna dry it off, the case will be ready. And then I got to go through those other components one time. We'll get it all cleaned up, and then we'll reassemble it, and then see what the converter shop says. I'm not really going to videotape much of putting this thing back together. You guys have kind of already seen that. So wish me luck. I hope we get to the bottom of this. I'd like to have fun with the truck this year, especially with all the suspension changes we've done. And the Holly, that's the most important part, the Holly. So again, I know it's like a long-winded video. I appreciate you watching. Kind of just want to show you where we're at. If you have any questions or want to see anything, hit me up and let me know. That converter is not supposed to get where it's going until next Thursday, so it is going to take a while. And, it is what it is. Again, thanks for watching, guys. I will talk to you later.